Jack, I'm here today with my friend. How's that friend? I'm here today. Which camera? I'm here today with my friend Jack Blanch. Hello, Jack.
Hello.
And this is a book that I wrote. It's called, can I hold it up to this one? Does that work? Marlon, Brando, 9/11, beautiful poems that everybody will love. That's available now on Amazon. It has previously been the #1 best-selling book of poems in Australia. Can you believe it? Possums? It's really great stuff. So what I thought today as a sort of an ad for the book, I would read one of the introductions to you that was written by a friend.
Now, James, both of these people are friends of mine, but I haven't read either of these.
There are two introductions.
Yeah.
Should we do? Well, there's two. One's positive and one's negative. I'll start with the positive one.
I was going to say the negative one, but okay.
All right. This is Some Sort of Neighbours, the introduction to my book, Marlon Brando 9/11, by Sean Haylock, a great writer who has a book of his own out now. I'm going to link to it below. All right. Have you read Clive James? I don't mean the whole corpus of poems about his imminent cancer death. And I don't mean the amusing and heartfelt biography that presumably exists. It does exist. Several of them exist. Right. And will inevitably be adapted into a miniseries starring Patrick Warburton. I mean James's criticism. It is frequently a spectacle of refined pettiness. In his book, Cultural Amnesia, which is an ambitious intellectual dramatis personae of the 20th century, his entry on Evelyn Waugh is a 5-page diatribe on the bad grammar of a single sentence in one of Waugh's memoirs. So we've had quite a lot of this white wine, and a burp is coming up to the boil. As bad as the offending sentence is, you of course feel for Waugh. This kind of criticism, lobbed from a comfortable historical distance and printed in a volume from Picador, is a daunting thing for a young writer to behold. I can't help but see it in a blasphemous paraphrase. Be thou perfect, illiterate hack! Isn't that nice? When you turn to James's writings on poetry, brackets, a topic unpopular enough that to regard it seriously is always to regard it, at least in part, with the affection of the aficionado, closed parentheses, what you find is scarcely more encouraging. Sylvia Plath's poem Cut is brilliant, but she gave it the wrong title. Even though it's about a cut, she should have called it Kamikaze Man, the silly bitch! Even when he's being perceptive and charming, James is never far away from pedantry or griping. Tom Gunn wrote some tremendous poems early on, and some poems almost equally tremendous in the last phase of his life. Unfortunately, there was a long stretch in the middle where his poems weren't tremendous at all, end quote. Did TV, watching it and being on it, make James this way? Because he often sounds like he belongs in a He often seems like he belongs in a scarlet upholstered swivel chair under studio lights, seated between Simon Cowell and an actress you vaguely recognise. Doesn't he write I was so upset that I'd fucked up when I was reading it, because he writes so nicely. What James does so wonderfully, brackets, I mean my friend James, the author of this tremendous book, he really wrote that, is aspire to popularity without ever approaching anything as vulgar as snark. I think of the superb silliness of Vertigo and The Heart and the Bum, of Spoons and KFC. I think of the anxious, just reading that back, I can't believe I wrote a poem called The Heart and the Bum. It's a good one too. I think it's an excellent poem about hearts and bums. I think of the anxious yet winsome logic of Adam and Cars and Absolutely. I think of the generous candour of Holy Spirit and Whoopsie Daisy. I think of the ecstatic absurdism of Paul Keating and A Time Before Land. I think of the crisp. You've got to find friends to write your introductions, because only they can write such wonderful things about your work. Except sometimes when you get a friend to write them like the second one and it's not so positive. I think of the crisp comic realisation of Mussolini wine, and I see no trace of the mean-spiritedness with which those aspiring to popularity so often pander to their audience. Even in those poems that partake most of a spirit of invective, mediocre, and yuck, I sense a sublimated magnanimity, just as James, at his most arrogant, parentheses, as in the preface say, I'll read you the preface later on, practices a sort of homeopathic self-deprecation. Maybe I'm just saying, in a very pretentious way, that I like the man. I like you too, Sean. I believe there's a good chance. How is it that a slim chance and a fat chance mean the same thing? That you'll read these poems and like the man too. Isn't he good?
So good.
He's very good. And he's writing in my book, Marlon Brando 9/11, for sale now on Amazon. But if you're smart enough to have bought this book, you don't need me to describe its virtues to you. If you came here to find out how to feel about what you've read or are about to read, then you're an idiot. A smart idiot, I guess, since you bought the book in the first place, brackets, smart. But then you read this introduction as a substitute for having an organic reaction to the book. Idiotic. I do that. I always read the introduction.
Always.
You try and read it afterwards. I recently read Tender as the Night. Yeah. And I was like, how the fuck am I supposed to feel about that? And then I read the introduction. I was like, it didn't help. It's at this point that I have to confess that I don't know what the purpose of this introduction is, other than the purpose James outlined to me of beefing up the page count to justify asking people to fork out $20. That is true. It was a bit on the short side, and I thought it was unfair to ask for $20 for Marlon Brando 9/11 beautiful poems. Which camera? Which camera? That everybody will love. There must be a reasonably compelling observation to be salvaged here. Let's see. Clive James, James McCann, pedantry and magnanimity and knowing what you like, knowing who you like. Okay, here we go. Sartre was right. Hell is other people. I see the folks who live in my neighbourhood very seldom. But if neighbour has a capacious biblical meaning, then I have, and you have, neighbours. I have work colleagues. You work with Sean, don't you?
I'm one of them.
I have work colleagues and relations, and my fellow citizens do not completely cooperate with the state's attempts to make them mere digital spectres to me. They are all my neighbours. The creator of heaven and earth commands me to love them all. Do not tell me that this life is easy. Probably James meant something very different when he wrote of mediocre people with, quote, some sort of neighbours. Probably the ironic imprecision of that line is simply intended as an acknowledgement of the paltriness of the social bonds of the contemporary suburbanite. But I see a keen spiritual perception in it. The flip side of the popular artist's penchant for meanness is the sophisticate's scorning of the finest effects of popular art. I can imagine someone reading these poems and being unimpressed that anything calling itself poetry contains anything as appealing as a well-executed joke with setup and punchline. But these poems succeed as poems because they succeed as comedy. They recapitulate one of the great gifts of the comic sensibility. They are anti-gravity poems. Taking grave subjects and discovering how they can be made to generate gusts of laughter. There is no subject graver than the primeval loneliness of every human individual. It is an illusion, though, really. You got your start in a womb, neighbour, and that womb was not something, but someone. You have always been a someone abutting another someone. That might sound like a bogus religion or New Age psychology, but don't take my word for it. Take James Donald Forbes McCann's, because these are poems about mass culture and about quotidian life and about the experience of being an idiosyncratic self, about the faces we all know and the thoughts we all have and the ironies we don't realise we all live with. A glimpse of hell, you might say. A glimpse of heaven too.
Wow.
Man, I wish I'd written a book of poems as good as the one he's describing. Because when that line that he points out, like some sort of neighbours,
Yeah.
I was drunk. I was out of it, and I don't remember what it was supposed to mean.
James, you've read me some of those poems, and
they're not that good.
Better than
I know,
any
it's
of them.
so much better than the poems. So once again, which camera? Marlon Brando 9/11, beautiful poems that everybody will love. Out now on Amazon. Do you want to hear the negative introduction?
I really do.
All right. It's just written also by my friend Anna. And I just thought it would be fun to get my friends who don't write enough to write.
No, you didn't ask me. It's totally fine. Yeah.
I already had... you're welcome to write the introduction for my next book of poems.
After hearing that, I don't want to.
Wait till you hear Anna.
Okay.
A Word of Warning by Anna Freer. James Donald Forbes McCann is a good man. It's not an entirely bad introduction. I did think about going and finding a man who I know hates me and another woman who I know... There are like two people that I can say with some certainty hate me.
That's so funny. You should,
And I thought of getting them. My wife begged me not to do it.
yeah.
Yeah. But I thought, I said, you know the he. You know the he.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah. But get him to do it.
Yeah, I think I know the she as well.
There's a he and a she.
Yeah.
Who knows? Time has passed. Maybe it's two theys by this point. But I thought it would be funny to get them to write an introduction to a book of poems.
I mean,
I don't think they'd do
they'd
it.
both be great.
They'd both say no. They're both so funny
Yeah.
and so smart.
Yeah.
I've got good people who hate me.
You've got
top
great
quality
enemies.
haters.
You've got
the
great
best
enemies.
enemies.
Yeah.
Here's Anna Freer, who loves me and I love. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
She did not like the book.
Not an enemy yet. Yeah.
James Donald Forbes McCann is a good man. I believe this truly with my whole heart. He has many redeeming qualities which more than make up for his occasional flightiness of character and frequent bad haircuts. It's funny she says that because not a week ago I did this with scissors at home. And you can't see the back, but it's not right. Very funny. He is a good, and more than that, he is actively seeking to be good. Very kind. Don't know that it's true. Very kind. We're all doing our best, but sometimes our best isn't very good at all. I do not believe that a great deal of these poems are good or actively seeking to be good. I do not know how I feel about this book. With my whole heart, I don't know if I can, in good conscience, promote it. James asked me to write an introduction. At first, I was loath to do so. He is a dear friend. I love his wife. I am the godmother of their first child, and I want her and all and sundry of his further children to be provided for. And for that, the success of this book is paramount. So, I am here, but also, this is a warning. Buy this book, then read James's prose. Watch his comedy, listen to his damn podcast. Don't read most of these poems. Poetry is a vital form of expression. It's using words to say exactly what you mean. We can waffle on about how no rules matter anymore and how free expression should be free and how there are no rights and wrongs these days, but that is wrong because poetry deserves more from us than that as writers and readers. It's an artistry of punctuation and rhythm and manipulation and moments of wonder at what language can do. 1 second. It's mysterious, powerful, one step away from song in the transcendental order. It's at once so useless and so necessary, its only purpose to say something in the way closest to beauty as possible, its only purpose to be enjoyed. To enjoy something, we must at its core take it seriously. We must try to understand it in some sense. Lightness and laughter, even poking fun at something, comes from understanding. And in order to be understood, the thing must, at its core, have sincerity. It cannot be a vessel for a laboured long-form joke about how easy it is to make bad art. There is enough bad art made in all sincerity in this world to add bad art made insincerely. Maybe I'm being unbearable and pretentious. There are good parts to this, flashes of genius, the rhythm of the title poem, the abrupt joy in the punchline in Virgin Lounge. Mussolini wine is quite excellent and Paul Keating has a strong beginning, if a weak ending. Violence, the project, James is at his best when he pays attention to language, rhythm, syntax, when he doesn't just take a good piece of prose he has written and add some arbitrary line breaks. James is a good and talented man. He has tremendous drive, an undeniable flair, and a real aptitude for engaging writing. Thank you, Anna. He takes the art of stand-up comedy seriously, and he writes fabulous and incisive essays. It's not untrue. And really, the punchline to Virgin Land is very good. Buy this book, support this man, but after you do, read something he takes seriously.
Wow. You had two intros that were complete opposite.
Yeah.
And they were both right.
But to find out how right they both are, you'll have to go to the link below and buy Marlon Brando 911. Beautiful Poems That Everybody Will Love by James Donald Forbes McCann. The #1 best-selling book of poems when it was released. Some time has passed since then, and I think it's dropped down substantially. That's Marlon Brando 911. Beautiful Poems That Everybody Will Love. Buy it now! Thank you for sitting here and listening to that.